This hangout is now live. Good morning. Well, not good morning. What do I say? Good afternoon. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Minecraft Ed's AfterChat. This is the chance that we take to cover the highlights of tonight's Twitter EdChat. This is Minecraft Ed, and it's an Ed chat where we get together on Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. For those of you who aren't aware and have just sort of stumbled across this, we get together and we talk about topics of Minecraft in education. Our entire agenda, our goal for starting this thing up, Mark, the co-founder, and myself, was to really start bridging that conversation between what are the do's and don'ts in Minecraft and education, how do you get the most power out of it, and how do we as a community of people, a community of educators get together and share all the resources that we are capturing and creating. So tonight's Ed Chat with Mark and I was on the basics and expectations of using Minecraft in education. So Mark, what were some of the highlights? Because that's what this is all about. We're going to keep this to probably about 15-20 minutes and share with you guys those highlights. If you do have any questions, please feel free to submit those questions and they should appear to us.
So thank you, Garrett. My big highlight, I just loved going back to the basics in general and just seeing all the new faces in our chat. It was a great chat, a lot of energy. Everyone's throwing out great ideas. And it was so wonderful seeing so many people who have never been in the chat before to really just, start a new conversation. And I really hope that everyone who was in the chat, they can come back and, continue that conversation in the weeks to come. Next week.
Yeah. Do it.
Next week, we have an amazing educator. He is a Q rock star, John Miller. If you don't know who he is and you're not following him, you need to be following him on Twitter. He's going to be leading the chat, and he's going to be talking about literacy and building strong readers and writers and just promoting literacy using Minecraft.
Absolutely. John is a powerhouse. He's done some amazing things, and not just in terms of getting his students involved in literacy and really engaged in it through the power of Minecraft, but developing this collaborative approach to doing it. So anyway, I won't say too much about that. We'll have an opportunity to talk to him next week. But Mark, we had 5 questions, and I think it might be apropos to cover those questions so that people have an idea of what we discussed, and then we'll kind of pick out some of the highlights of those questions that we took. So question 1 was, what are the benefits, challenges of Minecraft in education, and how are you and your class going to harness Minecraft in education? So was there anything that stood out for you in terms of an answer to that particular question?
So I'm going back through my Twitter feed and just listening to how—
It's a long way back, eh?
Yeah. We really had a lot of activity, and just looking back on what everyone said and how everyone's using Minecraft. And, we have a lot of people who are running after school clubs. We have some people running EDU and some running various mods besides the EDU mod, and I'm sure we have some people in there running vanilla as well. Mm-hmm. Just listening to how teachers are using Minecraft in the classroom, that's always fun. And then just hearing the different types of activities and projects that are coming up. And I'm looking for who tweeted it out. They talked early on about how they're teaching their kids about Pompeii through
that would have been Terry. Yeah.
Tweeted out how she's using Pompeii to use Minecraft to teach history and to recreate this significant historical event and really bringing it to life. And I just thought, wow, we could even take that to the next level and have students as archaeologists and actually excavating Pompeii in modern society. And I thought, wow, that'd be so cool. So just listening to those ideas and then piggybacking off of them.
I think you're absolutely right. There's one theme that I always bring up in every single one of these chats, and it's the theme of how do we authentically engage students in the game experience. And archaeology, what you just said there, is an absolutely brilliant way. We have two spheres of influence for Minecraft. We've got the project-based learning side of things, and we have the actual game side of things. And a lot of the conversation today was talking about, are we going to use survival? Are we going to use creative? What modes are good? And the idea of giving the students a challenge to actually have to find and excavate and dig and search for these particular artifacts, that point you just brought up, it's absolutely brilliant because it aligns it more closely to the game that kids know and love. When we add challenge on something, for example, I've spoken about this before, when we hand somebody something on a silver platter, we don't add enough challenge, it is never a game. It becomes too easy, versus if we add that challenge, we can turn it into a game. So brilliant, brilliant point. I want to say, one of the thoughts that came up in terms of that particular question in terms of benefits, and it came up a number of times, was griefers.
Yes.
And I think we should cover that because it did come up in a few other questions at the same time. So what do you think of the idea of that being one of the biggest cons? And did you see any strategies? I know I saw something come up about how do you handle griefers? Did you find anything useful in those conversations that you wanted to bring up?
I think a recurring theme with griefing that came up is learning is a messy process.
Good point.
Learning is not linear. It is not a straight line. And
it shouldn't be. Again, going back to, if it's too easy, or too boring, we lose a lot of interest in it, and we lose a lot of powerful retention opportunities.
And griefing is a great opportunity to learn, and it creates a conflict.
Yes.
And it creates its own struggle. And I think that's where the real learning occurs, because when you need to develop skills in order to confront a griefer.
Yeah.
Whether it's in real life or in the game. And I think that is such.
If you are a griefer.
Or if you are a griefer. Mm-hmm. And I mean,
if you, and I don't want to interrupt, but if you look at some of the psychological studies on, the sociopaths that are out there, this is a very important point, is, we have to look at griefing because educators, you will come across them in your classrooms. You will find students whose personal role, whose personal bent, whose psychological gamer profile dictates that they destroy things.
Yes.
And I'll cover in a moment one of the strategies for dealing with that. But, the whole idea of psychopaths and sociopaths is the fact that they didn't have those opportunities growing up, whether they were sheltered or hidden as children. They didn't have those interactions, those social interactions, to recognize the boundaries between right and wrong and social dynamics. And so, griefing, as you're saying, Mark, does present an opportunity for us to, really drive forward those social skills that kids need.
Yes, and develop valuable coping skills.
Yes.
And, we cannot shelter children, and they need to learn how to confront their peers and be able to productively work through their problems with them. And so Garrett, it sounds like what you're saying is that with the rise in Minecraft, we are going to see a decrease in sociopaths.
I didn't say that.
One can only hope.
I can see with Minecraft that we're developing a global collaborative spirit.
Yes.
I work with people across the globe. I work with, people in the UK, people in Australia. Lynn Telfer was in the chat today.
Yes.
She's from Australia.
Phenomenal educator.
And I'm very proud to have met all these people. And so Minecraft does present an opportunity where, some of these typical challenges that we didn't see, such as dealing with griefers, dealing with people who are negative influences, dealing with all of that, and forcing ourselves to deal with it in a productive way, not to mention the collaborative opportunities that come across. I think Minecraft is really spearheading that opportunity. Do I think that Minecraft is going to be a powerful influencer on the growth and development of a global collaborative spirit? Yes, absolutely. Yes. Much in the same way that World of Warcraft has become a proponent. What's her name? I'm going to be killed for saying this. Oh my goodness. Jane McGonigal.
Okay.
Talks a lot about the power of these collaborative games in creating this opportunity for us to really change the world. And I think Minecraft is in that same platform.
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. And,
So,
and I think that there are just to hit one more time, I want to give a little shout out to Stephen Isaacs. He reached out to me.
he always deserves a good shout out.
He always does. I mean, you may notice I got this silly little bow tie on. Uh, I want to give a shout out to Stephen Isaacs, who's a huge participant in our community, and he is right now involved with Mind Fair, which is happening in the middle of October.
And
So
I always forget to mention this during the Twitter chat. I apologize. I know I interrupt too much. But he also runs Games for Ed.
yes,
Which is a chat that happens on Thursdays. Don't miss it. Hashtag Games for Ed. Do not miss it. It's valuable.
Ed and Ed Tech Bridge on Wednesday.
Yes.
If you're free all these nights. So I just want to give a shout out to him who invited me out to go to Brickfest this weekend, and I picked up this nifty little Lego bow tie. But I was able to experience real life griefing while I was at Brickfest. They had these huge, massive pits, basically, of Legos where kids could build, and I have these great shots of all these kids building, and then my 3-year-old son stomping the Legos in the middle and just destroying everything. So it happens, and yes, he needed to get that out of his system. But it does. It happens. So, and griefing is a reality, and I think it becomes a valuable teaching point.
Absolutely, and it brings you back to a strategy that you guys can take place in, or take to heart if you feel that this strategy will work for you and your children. And then we'll move on to some of the other questions and key points that came up. When you're dealing with griefers, you have to recognize Bartle's theory of gamer psychology, and a lot of the theories of gamer psychology out there talk about those killers. And killer is not a bad word. In a gaming environment, a killer is not a bad word. The student's desire, the child's desire, the gamer's desire, child or adult, is to be in control, to have this sort of powerful opportunity to destroy something. And I was a destroyer when I was growing up. And I can tell you there are strategies for dealing with that and managing that appropriately. One strategy that I do recommend, especially in Minecraft, is give them TNT.
Yeah.
Right? We know that there are rebels out there. And if you tell a rebel, no, don't do that, the rebel is going to rebel. Just plain and simple, they're going to. However, if you give a rebel the opportunity to create some level of anarchy in a controlled environment, in a controlled space, I'm not saying, give them a diamond sword and give them PvP power to, kill all of their friends. But imagine in a survival game or in a world that you guys are building, that you say, okay, you know what? We need that mountain over there taken care of. Here's a stack of TNT. I want you to go and destroy it. That child will have an outlet to get rid of that mountain. That child will have an outlet. And it's by giving those outlets and recognizing that that's just a core part of their gamer personality, of their own personality, not to be hated, not to be demeaned, but it's part of who they are. But giving them a strategy to use it in a productive and conducive, or in a fashion that's conducive to the entire team. That's one strategy that seems to work fairly well in, and seems to work in a lot of the research that I've done as well.
Just thinking about it from the educator's point of view, we always assign roles. So why not the demolitionist as a role? All right.
And part of that, is about knowing, and I talk about this all the time, know your gamer.
Yeah.
Know your students. Bringing games into the classroom is not something that you can do willy-nilly and say, just because it's a game, they're going to be engaged. No, you really do have to understand how, these students react and interact in games. It becomes vitally important to your success as a classroom educator and their success as students. So anyway, yes, Mark.
Let's jump to question 2.
Yeah.
So question 2, Garrett, was there anything that jumped out to you on what role do you have versus the student's role when using Minecraft in the classroom?
So I think there was a couple of responses that, it varied from, my role is as the facilitator and my role is as the to work along with them, to do it along with them. And it really brightened my spirit to see educators using Minecraft in a collaborative fashion, in a way that says, hey, you know what, I'm on the same level. We talked about this in the autism spectrum chat, which you guys, it's in the YouTube channel, so go ahead and take a look at that. Where, you know, one of the good things about games is it balances the playing field. It puts us all on the same level. And when teachers take that step and take that approach and say, okay, you know, I am going to be on the same level, it really aligns itself authentically with the students' core expectations of a game environment. And so you get this stronger learning presence. However, that being said, there was some very good points and very good comments being made on being the facilitator. And it is such an important point. One thing that I took great note of was that there is that balance that has to be had, and you have to make those decisions. If you're spending all of your time as a facilitator, then you're doing the students a disservice and yourself. However, the same can be said if you're spending all of your time as a collaborator. There does need to be a level of balance. So if you sort of fluctuate between the two, act as a facilitator in some cases, act as a collaborator in other cases, you get a much more powerful experience for the students and for yourselves. I've been teaching a lot of educators and working with a lot of educators recently, and starting to develop some workshops on it, where the educator has to be the game designer. There's powerful opportunity when you, as an educator, become the game designer and understand a little bit about game design in Minecraft. When you do that, you can put so much content in such a relevant and authentic fashion in front of students that they gobble it up. And I guarantee, from the research that I've been doing, you know, the retention rates become even higher. And it's not just gamification, it's true game-based learning. When you give them that challenge, you give them that activity, you give them the opportunity to fail, you give them that instant critical feedback in a game setting where it's not the teacher saying, hey, you did this right, you did this wrong, but it's the game itself that's teaching those skills and iterating those skills. That becomes a powerful option. So again, you know, game designer, be a collaborator, be a facilitator, but, you know, pick and choose the times that you do all of them.
I think like in everything, there's a balance, and
Yes.
I just want to, you know, I'm not using Minecraft EDU, but this came up a number of times, and I really liked it, and I think this is powerful. Is giving the students teacher access to act as a leader.
Yeah,
Love that, love that, and that a number of educators were saying that they use that,
I
and
didn't
I just
see
think
that
that's
pop
so
up.
powerful. I think that is just
brilliant.
yeah, it is.
It is. I mean,
So simple, but so effective.
and this may be another strategy for those griefers. Is, you know, there's so many reasons why somebody will grief. One of the reasons might be attention. And if you put somebody in a position of responsibility to make those rules, this is something that was always coming up, is, you know, give the students the opportunity to make and create the rules. But if you take one student and put them in charge of that entire group, you start to see them understand themselves in a leadership position, and it becomes powerful. Really, really amazing point. Awesome point, Mark. So Q3, Mark.
Q3.
How can we use the different game modes to teach and assess different skills? So survival versus creative versus spectator. What are your thoughts?
So what always jumps out at me when I think of the different game modes is I think back to our chat with Shane Asselstein, who mentioned using spectator mode to observe students in their natural state.
Can I just do a Steve? What's his name?
Oh, golly, look at the gazelle. We can only see him doing this because we're in a height.
I'm sorry, I can't.
But I that always just rings true for me, and I think that is such a powerful feature of the newer versions. Are we live?
Lynn's going to be hating you for trying the Australian accent.
Yeah, really. Yeah, we have a strong Australian base.
Mm.
How about yourself?
I think that's a brilliant point, and I really loved it when Shane brought it up, and I love the fact that it did come up a couple of times tonight, and I think you reiterated it a number of times. Very valid point. You know, watching students in their own environment becomes powerful. You actually get so much. Again, it goes back to the point of we don't always need to be the facilitator. We don't always need to be in control. In fact, in a lot of the business consulting work that I do, the management side of sales, in my past, a lot of it stems to, you know, okay, you've got all these different rules and all these different guidelines. When do they have an opportunity to get to know their customer instead of just doing it the way that you've scripted? And it does become powerful when you give somebody the opportunity to just kind of go off and feel like they're not being watched, they're not being analyzed. So that spectator mode is brilliant. The other side that I think came out was this sort of debate between survival, creative, and adventure mode. And, you know, I want to impress upon all the educators, and if you get a chance to look at the Twitter archives, you'll see it, is there were proponents for each side of it. You know, the creative mode is really, really good for, you know, developing those larger builds. But there is power in the scarcity of resources in survival mode. There is power in the opportunity to feel like you're playing a game with challenge, with danger, and with instant feedback. If you don't make it over this particular jump, I use this example in a presentation I did this week at CanConnect Ed. You know, if you're in a game and you need to learn something, what's one of the things that you learn in Mario? You've got to jump over, you've got to jump a certain distance in order to make it, or you're going to die. Right? Yep. There's instant feedback, and people will try again, and finally they'll get professional at jumping those chasms. So, you know, survival really does, and adventure really does present that opportunity for you to add that element of challenge, that element of failure, that element of growth mindset in there. And that was
you need to have consequences, or you're not going to learn. And absolutely, you know, if you're in an adventure mode and you need to jump over blocks, over lava, and you miss that jump, you know, you're going to learn real quick, or you're going to keep doing it, and you're going to do it again until you get to that level of mastery, and whatever that skill is.
Interestingly enough, we were talking about with I'm going to try and bring up the name here, but we were talking about this sort of breakout edu.
Yes, breakout
idea.
edu.
And
yes,
such
fabulous.
a fantastic idea to put into Minecraft, because breakout edus, what they really do is they add this huge level of challenge to our education, and we can really analyze them after the fact and during the fact to see what we're doing and how we're critically thinking about things. And that sharpens the mind, it sharpens the brain pan, so to speak. It sharpens those processes. I'm trying to find who it was that was speaking about it. Was it Russell?
Was it Ullman from Princeton?
Mr. Ullman.
From Princeton. Yeah, and Russell may have brought it up as well.
Trying to find these.
You know, the idea of escape the room.
Yeah.
In Minecraft, which you know, is so funny because we had just chatted about that prior to the chat, and how powerful that could be, and something that I'm trying to develop with one of my students who is just become so engrossed in a series of unfortunate events by Lemony Snicket.
Snickets.
And he is building Count Olaf's mansion. And the level of detail that this student is putting into this build is amazing. I can tell that he has gone back and read the setting and the descriptions again and again and again, just to get this build right, and the way that he sees it. And he says, look, here's the table, and here's the furnace where they serve the roast beef, and phenomenal.
And look at when you're going through a book in that much detail in order to replicate it, in order to recreate it. You know, I remember in English class, and I was always a big English pro. I was always a big English fan, and I loved using alliteration, and I loved using my adjectives and my verbs. This student here is getting a 10 times better a realistic and experiential experience on how to conjugate, not conjugate, but how to alliterate and how to use metaphor and how to describe things in a beautiful way that, you know, we would never get from just reading Shakespeare once because we had to in a classroom. So powerful. So powerful.
And he's even taken it a step further, that he has a book that he's keeping a diary of his building. So each day that he builds, he's adding his thoughts.
That's amazing.
Very cool, very cool. And this is all self-driven, you know. We discuss the build, but he is really in control of it, and it's powerful. And so we're going to try to take it to the next level and make it into an adventure map. Escape Count Olaf's mansion.
Hey, let me ask you this. So this is a student of yours, and
he's a fifth grader.
Okay. So have you considered approaching him about what are the extra things that he can put on, or things that are still tied to the game or to that book? What are the learning examples that he can put in? What are the learning challenges that he can put in? Because what would be very interesting is to see you and him recreated as an adventure world and have other students play it to learn a concept, to learn a key skill, to learn something that you have to teach anyway and they have to learn anyway.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. And I mean, just going into game design and student as game designer, you know, having kids, going back to our chat with the Grundlers on design thinking, having students test his game, giving him feedback, and going through that the iterative process of developing and redeveloping his game. And yes, I love the idea of incorporating just these skills that I need to teach the kids anyway. Let them learn it through playing his adventure map. It's so empowering.
So let's move on to Q4.
Yes.
I think that's a brilliant idea, and I think every one of you out there really should give consideration to that. Look at developing your students and yourselves as game designers. Minecraft becomes a very easy tool to do it in, especially with adventure worlds. And if you need any help, advice, or assistance, do not hesitate to reach out to us. We've got lots of resources to people who know what they're doing. Q4. Is this one my question or yours?
I'll read it. How are the expectations of the game similar and different between the classroom and the home experience?
All right, so we covered this a little bit in the Twitter chat. There was some good conversation, and it's interesting how these Twitter chats run because, you know, the question that's asked in Q4 or Q5 will always be answered in Q1, Q2 anyway. So perfect opportunity to kind of recap through it all. As far as expectations go, one of the things that I talk a lot about is, you know, making the Minecraft experience authentic. In education, we don't have to turn it into a worksheet in order to get our educational results. And so, you know, we do have to make certain distinctions between the classroom versus the home experience. And one of the ideas that was coming out there is that, you know, student or players have all the time in the world to do what they want. They don't have any time restrictions. They don't have any specific, you know, requirements or goals that are set down in order to get out of it. So there's that distinction between the home and the classroom environment. And I think it came up that we need to make that distinction with our students very relevant, that there is a level of respect that we have to show for everybody. There is a level of respect for the time and the content that we need to get through. So those things do have to be done. However, that being said, there was also a number of points that pointed to the fact that, you know, while we have to have certain restrictions, we have to be careful with those restrictions. We don't want to overly restrict the game so that it no longer becomes the game.
Right.
So, you know, classroom versus home experience, as much as we can authentically align it to the student's experience in Minecraft, because remember, it's their game, you know, as long as we balance out the educational requirements, we're in a successful zone.
I
If that
agree.
makes sense.
I agree, and I think you walk a fine line when you're using the word restrictions. We might say parameters, and I think that is very important, is to have parameters in education. I was chatting with, I believe, Rachel from West Virginia,
Rachel
who
Burkett.
Rachel Burkett, who mentioned um, restrictions and then talking about classroom community. And that made me realize that maybe one very important restriction that we do need to have is who are our students connecting with, in the outside world. When we're at home, we are building our Minecraft network and we may be making friends across the globe. But when we're in the classroom setting, we may want to restrict that and limit it to just the classroom and not opening up our server or opening up our maps to outside networks.
Very important point. And I think, most educators would fall on that as a level of common sense. Obviously, with privacy concerns and everything like that, we do have to be careful. One of the points that I want to bring up is by Lynn Telfer. And we're both very, very familiar with her. She's a resounding figure in education, and she works very closely with me at MindGauge as my director of education. But she made the point in question 4 that kids do respond well to the restrictions if they are transparent and well considered for the exercise. And this goes back to my earlier point in working in business. If we add these restrictions willy-nilly, cell phone policies is a perfect example. I've dealt with a number of business owners who had these, broad implemented cell phone policies, leave your cell phone at the door. And I've always seen tremendous results when they got rid of those cell phone policies because it's an overly restrictive environment. And it basically says you're all the same. Just because one person messed up with a cell phone, everybody is messed up. Right. It's not really a transparent, and it's not, well considered for the exercise. So that's the point that, Lynn is making here, that these restrictions, as long as we approach them with the right reason. So no, you can't build here. No, you can't build here. No, you can't build there. These build disallow blocks, I mean, honestly, why? Do they come in handy in some cases in adventure maps, these barrier blocks? Yes, absolutely. But if a player is going to want to break out or destroy something, that's a conversation that has to happen with that particular player. Not necessarily a broad stroke rule that has to go in. Yes, it makes it a lot easier on you as an educator, on us as an educator, to just say, okay, well, no more of this ever. But it's not actually giving us that opportunity, again, going back to griefers, where we can have that conversation and we can develop those social growth skills. So keep the restrictions transparent, keep them appropriate, keep them reasonable, and that's a place to find success in our classrooms, and student comfort, where all students don't feel like, okay, I'm being punished for something that somebody else did 2 years ago, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think the restrictions, if we do implement them, need to be in the student's best interest. They need to be respectful, and they need to, as you said earlier, with the cell phone policy, they need to be authentic, and they need to, demonstrate a certain level of trust. And in the cell phone policy, check your cell phone at the door. Well, that says I don't trust you, right? And
that is
you cannot break this, or you can only build here. We're now breaking that trust, where you're almost saying, I expect you to break this. I expect you to build this wrong, so you can only build it this way. So,
and it's a disconnect between what we're trying to get across. We're trying to empower students to be collaborators, to work together, to use teamwork.
It's a problem solve.
And then at the same time, we're saying, but you're not capable of it.
Right. So, I mean, obviously, if the trust is broken, if things are used inappropriately, then use that as a teaching point and a learning opportunity. And I guess those things can be put into place, and you as the teacher have ultimate discretion about how you would use that then, where you would go later in the year in the classroom with that.
Absolutely.
All right.
Well, amazing points, absolutely amazing points. And I know that each and every single one of you educators, especially those who are joining us and who have, really come on to the sort of Minecraft mentality, the Minecraft way of educating, this new pedagogical approach of, let's focus on collaboration and creativity and communication. I know you're all there with us, so we're probably preaching to the choir at this point. So without further ado, let's move on to the final question, which was, how do we assess a game's impact on students for mastery of skills and content? So what are the types of assessment methods that really stand out as being powerful to be able to use in Minecraft?
So wow, this question really crept up on me. And I cannot believe that we were on Q5 already.
I know.
But oh gosh, I really need to start writing down names. I think it was Terry again who tweeted out a copy of her Google form. Wow, did I like that as a reflective tool, and could really be tweaked.
So post-lesson reflection.
A post-lesson reflection in Google Forms. So you want to talk about app smashing? You got Minecraft and Google Apps going in there, but I just thought that was great to reflect on the process and on the building aspect and on everybody's roles. And what did you think? How could we improve this? So really letting students give their feedback and letting that guide future lessons. I thought it was great. I thought it was a great tool.
Excellent. So another thing that came up in terms of the assessments and how do we assess, the impact on students is, again, there's that reflective piece. A couple of other people were mentioning, and I'm trying to find the name here. We're mentioning that, it's about observation. One person said that they focus almost entirely on observation, paying attention to the conversations that students are having and what they're creating. It is such a powerful thing. And I think, going back to what Shane and yourself reiterated this, use that spectator mode. You have spectator mode or game mode 3 for a reason. It gives you that opportunity to really see the crocodile in his own environment.
Yeah.
And by doing that, we get a chance to really understand and see what's going on. At the same time, it keeps them immersed in the activity so that it's not a disconnect. They're breaking their train of thought or their critical thinking process, which is a very important and very internal process. When we break that, by taking a stop and saying, okay, we're going to stop here and use it as a teaching moment, we could potentially be breaking somebody out of their own internal learning moment.
Yes.
But that's not to say that those teaching moments and stopping and reflecting on those teaching moments aren't powerful. And so both ways, again, in an educator's pedagogical tool belt, assessment tool belt, we've got to make use of multiple different strategies depending on what there is. But you do have the option of using spectator mode. You do have the option of creating some amazing, post-lesson feedback forms so that you can get an idea of what was going on. One of the things that I really love about what Minecraft Education Edition is going to bring to the table, and I think it's going to bring it to the table. I don't personally have access to the Minecraft Education Beta Edition just yet. But because it's linked to Office 365, I had this feeling that the journaling, this was going to be one of my original value propositions with Minecraft or MindGauge EDU, my company, was to create an opportunity for students when they write in a Minecraft book to have it automatically extracted out. And I think Microsoft is going to be able to do that with their connection to Office 365. Is if a student is writing a journal, a reflective piece on what they've been doing, that becomes powerful and it gets extracted so educators can actually see it. So that's another powerful opportunity I don't think was discussed enough during Q5. Put the students in a situation where they have to write down in their journals, or they have to write a piece about what they've done. Irv Spanish, brilliant educator, yes. Love working with him. We've kind of worked very closely on turning his classroom into a real game setting via adventure. And I love what he's been doing because a lot of it is about giving students those opportunities, not from a teacher saying you need to do this, but from the scenario and the adventure and the world and the characters within that environment that students become invested in, saying, I need you to do this. Hey, I need you to write in Spanish and tell me what you want to buy from me before I'm going to sell it to you. And if you mess up my language, this is one of the brilliant points. If you butcher my language, I'm only going to give you half of what you asked for and charge you the same thing.
Those are the consequences.
These are the consequences. And these become actions and events that we can use to drive student writing. And I'll tell you, in a game, you get somebody halfway through a game, and this is proven. Psychology has proven this research. You get somebody so invested in something like a game, and they get halfway through, and then you ask them to do something. Doesn't matter what it is. I mean, within reason, of course. But you ask them to do something that's very difficult, that they would never want to do just because mom asked them or just because teacher asked them, and they will do it because they're already invested. And that's the level of investment that, you know, I think Minecraft doesn't intrinsically provide in education, but as teachers, we have the ability to harness that power of Minecraft so that we can get our students to really drive themselves deep into the learning.
And I think we can get our students real, you know, you bring up an excellent point. I think that we could really get our students invested in their learning.
Yes.
Because Minecraft is such an authentic tool, and it has an ridiculously large audience. So when you're creating in Minecraft, and that ability to share it with peers, in their class, in their school, on YouTube, to the world, you know, they're going to want to produce their best work, whether it's their best building or their best writing.
Yes.
So that they can share that experience. And you want a student to, you know, capitalize all their letters and put in all their punctuation and use their best words. They're going to do it if it's for this authentic audience where other people are going to play their map or, you know, travel through their village. It's going to be incredible. You know, I have students who are reluctant writers, but you give them a quill and a book in Minecraft,
and they're going.
And they're gonna write pages, and it's unbelievable. You know, I go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say I'm picturing as a YouTuber, if I had been running my Yummy Yummy World, and I said, okay, the next comment, if you guys leave a comment on this video, I am going to be checking for grammar. I am going to be checking for spelling, and I want you to write me an essay on why you should be allowed to join my world and play with me. I guarantee you I would have a ton of kids writing more than they've written in their life. And you know what they would do, even if they were too young to be able to understand grammar? They would go to their parents and they would say, can you help me write this?
Mm-hmm.
And when do we get that in education?
Yeah. And I know as my fifth graders, like, I don't even need to tell them to check their grammar. You know, you talk about iteration in writing. They're revising their own work. They're editing their own work because they know that other people are going to read it, and they want to make sure that it makes sense. They're not just reading it once and done. No, they're checking it twice, and you know, no Santa Claus references there, but yeah. I just think that is one of the most powerful aspects of Minecraft is its authenticity and its audience.
Use it.
You know, the number of viewers. It's just incredible. And that. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Go ahead. I was interrupting again.
No, I was just saying that kind of brings us to the end of our question. So, I mean, did you have any final thoughts? Well,
I mean, the final thought is, again, going back to, you've coined the term, or you've used the term, I've used it over and over again. It's know the game. know the audience authentically. Minecraft is not just one of those tools where we can slap it on the classroom and turn it into a worksheet and get good positive results out of it. I've worked with a couple of teachers, very specifically, I'll name drop here, Zoe Brennigan Pipe, who's been using it for gifted students for, about 4 years now. She was one of the earliest adopters of Minecraft, even before Minecraft Edu came around. And there is a point of diminishing return where the novelty of gamifying Minecraft into the classroom will wear out, and students will get to a point where there's not enough challenge in it anymore. So it's not just about building. Again, all of these strategies, all of these ideas on, how do you assess it? How do you use it? How do you use it authentically? How do you make it game-based? How do you add challenge? Things like this. These become very important points as you're progressing on your journey. But don't be afraid to just get right in, start it, play the game, talk to your students about it, understand what they love and value about the game, get that feedback, and use that to really align how you're going to be developing your Minecraft career, your Minecraft lessons. That's about all that we do have time for. Again, every single one of our Twitter Ed chats for Minecraft Ed is always such a passion to see such amazing, brilliant educators with great thoughts and great ideas coming to the table, sharing resources all over the place. So do not miss next week's, where we're going to be discussing with John Miller about Minecraft in education and how it can be used to empower and inspire reluctant readers and writers. Aside from that, if you want access to the Participate Learn transcripts, I will be putting it in the description so you can actually read the transcripts yourself. Other than that, Mark, I think that's about it.
That's it. Thank you all for joining us, and hope to see you next week.
Awesome. We'll see you guys next week on Tuesday at 8:00 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or 5 p.m. Pacific Time. Thanks again. Cheers, and have a great night.
Have a good night.
Happy Minecrafting!